the official warning from our legal department. Everything in this thing is fantasy. Don't try to do this with your own car. Do not place bombs all over the road to try to blow things up. Just as a general rule of thumb.
Oh my God!
Right? These are all professional stunt avatars that are doing this stuff here. Okay. All right. Who knows how to play Split Second? You want to try it with a new universal controller? All right. So you are probably the very first person who does not work at OnLive who has used a gamepad with a Samsung Galaxy Tab.
Awesome.
All right. And if it crashes, it's all your fault.
It's my fault. I take the blame.
Yeah. So as I was saying, the Samsung Galaxy Tab came out on Friday. It is now Tuesday.
It is.
So it took us only about 20 minutes support, and it is a little shaky. So there's still a couple bugs, but you'll have to go and say whether or not you think the performance is reasonably good. What do you say? So the picture quality okay?
Yeah.
And what's cool about it is it's it's full 720p, and there's a lot of situations where I think people could be traveling, or maybe you just don't have a lot of room in where you're living, and you want to play this thing.
And this is running on Wi-Fi right now?
This is running on Wi-Fi in a very, very hostile wireless environment. Because of all the different things going on here. So, and by the way, it may hiccup here and there because of it, but what you're seeing here is the evolution of the technology we've developed and the stability that we've been able to achieve after all that time. How's the feel?
It's good. I really like it. I can't wait to play it in my house. This is awesome. I really do. It works great.
Right now, this is great. Yeah. Well, so, basically, our view is that you should choose what hardware you want. You should choose what games you want. You should choose where it is you want to play games, how long, who you play games with, whatever. The whole thing about gaming that's been very difficult is, games are tied to a particular platform. And I'm sure we've all experienced this, where there's a really awesome game on PS3, but I've got Xbox, or vice versa, or the Wii's got something cool, whatever, and whatever, I think we're at a point now where we are more focused on what the experience is than we are the box that we got.
Making it another form of media.
What's that?
Making it another form of media.
Yes, that's exactly correct. Yes. Video games before OnLive really were a type of application. And applications, first of all, have certain compatibility requirements, they have certain performance requirements, they need to be upgraded, etc. But if you make it a form of media, like video or like music or even like, text or a magazine, then any device that's a connected device can have access to it. And of course, very soon everything will be connected. When you start seeing tablets come out on 4G, LTE, it is like having Wi-Fi, okay? And so you're actually going to have a tablet, and it's like having Wi-Fi wherever you go. It's very, very cool.
On the train,
totally. Yeah, exactly. And the other thing about gamers is that I think what people realize, with Xbox Live, with Steam, gamers are social. The bottom line is, it's not anymore that gaming is a thing that you just do on your own. Sometimes you want to, okay? But there's other times, the whole point of the thing is you got this multiplayer thing going. You got your bros or whatever, your friends. And the thing that is really cool about cloud gaming is the whole social dimension is very easy to do, and it's seamless. So, we've got chat going on now. We're getting more and more games with chat. Plus, you'll be able to go and choose whatever group you want and chat with everyone that's coming. And we've got integration with Facebook, so you can do postings of brag clips and stuff like that, and you wouldn't believe the numbers. We're seeing huge numbers of brag clips posted on Facebook. We're like,
how does that work out with Facebook? They hear, hey, we're OnLive, we want to basically upload a ton of videos to your servers really quickly.
Well,
how does that work out?
The way it happened is we literally went over there and we said, okay, here's this thing we're doing, and you guys have got these various APIs and everything, but we're about to push you, these HD resolution videos, and a lot of them, and then also have links back to the service so people can launch back into the games and so on, or right back into like a spectating page or a profile page. And their answer was, cool. Okay, let's go and let's make this thing happen. And there's a couple of things, since we were pushing the envelope, they had to make a couple of changes, and they're incredibly accommodating. And so it's great. So we just released it, and there off we go. Yeah. But yeah, it's actually, there's a lot of people who have been accommodating. The sort of the shout out is also to all the game publishers who, when we had 0 million users, came out and says, okay, it's $0 million of revenue, right? They all came out and said, okay, we're going to go and get you some titles and help you and get them working on OnLive. And they of course had to divert resources from other things in order to do that. And now we have a library of over 100 games, and we're basically, cranking out games pretty much day-and-date release with consoles. And, the thing we unfortunately don't have to show here, but you can see it in the E3 videos, is new games like From Dust, which are coming out just for OnLive. I mean, they come out, of course, for consoles with controllers or on PC, Mac, with keyboard, mouse. But the touch version of it will work with OnLive on tablet devices, so you can go and control the games and navigate through the space. And Nintendo, of course, was saying this about the Wii U, and I think they're right. There are certain game experiences where direct touching or contact or direct positioning of your finger work much better. World of Goo is a great example of that. I mean, I think the best version of World of Goo is the iPad version. Better than one we have on our system, actually. Not to say, but you still should get it on OnLive because it's great. But World of Goo, you really want to point right at that goo ball and drag it to where it is, And you can do it with a mouse. It's very tricky with a controller, so we don't really have it with the controller. But it's so nice with the touch thing. But the thing about it, yes, a game like that turns out is limited enough in its performance that it can work very nicely on a tablet. But there's a whole class of games, like, with From Dust, when you hit a button and the whole world rotates in 3D, and you're seeing this this fluid simulation of the oceans churning and dust flying in the air and everything. Well, you're just not going to do that in a portable device. In fact, if you did build a portable device that had that kind of compute power, the battery would burn down in about 10 minutes. Okay? So you want the thing to last. So that turns out to be a very nice matchup for the kind of technology we're bringing.
Are you seeing a lot of publishers that they're starting to look at how you're able to make these work on multiple devices, and they're starting to get the idea of, we can probably use this in a unique way? Like they're obviously saying, but are you starting to see some publishers just saying, we have an advantage with this?
You will, and these guys, they got to pay the bills, okay? And whenever there's an emerging platform, even if it's an emerging platform that's, Microsoft or Sony is introducing, they've always got to go and keep their existing businesses going. I'll give you an example. I mean, PlayStation 3 came out, it was years and years and years before they decide there's some releases that don't have PlayStation 2 versions, right? It's just, they have to. You have to pay the bills, and it takes a while for the world to switch over, right? So it's the same thing here. We're in this transitional state where, if you will, are adolescence, and so people are trying things, and they have the flexibility to try things like they've never done it before. I mean, one of the things that's been hard for them is that they go and do a release of a game, and they've got to really do a port and debug it on all these different platforms, and they've got various different limitations or capabilities, right? Now they can have one version of the game that the only thing they really have to do is make sure that it accommodates different types of interfaces. Keyboard, mouse, controller, touch, and then eventually, more motion things. But it's still one version of the game that they release, one version of the game that they have to maintain. So in the end, that, makes it so that it reduces their costs, so you'll get more and better games. But there's another thing that you're going to see happen, which has never happened before in the gaming world, which is the first things, you've seen some of the demos we've done about these incredibly realistic faces, and that is, they're not going to be bound by, if you will, the least common denominator of performance. I mean, today, even though PCs can do amazing performance, you can have multiple GPUs, dual 6-core processors. You go crazy with a PC if you really are a hardcore gamer, okay? It's a small market, so the publishers, it's very hard for them to justify the level of investment to develop a lot of games for computers like that. And the trouble is that those, the people who have computers like that, they're the pioneers. I mean, they're the ones that are really pushing the envelope of gaming. So they end up developing games where they get the most volume, which is of course for consoles. And consoles are constantly getting older. Now it's 2011. They were introduced in 2005, 2006, right? So with OnLive, what they're able to do now is develop games for a 2011 class server. Or in fact, actually what's happening now is there are some games being developed for 2013 class servers. I kid you not, okay? So, in other words...
This is because you have that server power offering, or is this just something that they're preparing for in advance?
They've seen the numbers. Look, you see all these game publishers are talking about digital distribution and how they're moving to the cloud and everything. And, obviously this is one of the things that they're looking at. And they are thinking, okay, to be competitive in 2013, these games take a couple of years to develop, right? I've got to design for that now. But there's a different wrinkle. Before, when they would design for, say, a particular year of release, they would really plan on a level of performance that's maybe 2, 3, or 4 years older, because they need a large enough installed base of devices, whether it's PCs, consoles, or whatever, to justify the investment for the game. Now they know if they go design a game for 2013 level of performance from, say, NVIDIA or HEI or Intel or AMD, what have you, and they know that these chips haven't even been made yet, but they're coming out in 2 years based on the roadmap that they get from the companies, that when those games are available, we will have a server that meets them there. And the entire world will be able to play those high-performance games at the absolute state-of-the-art performance. And there's even a better thing than that that's really cool. Again, there's a couple of hints we left at E3. Nobody figured it out. All right, that's fine. But there's no reason in the world why you have to be limited to one server. Okay? Yes, if you're playing a lower performance game, we might even have 4 people sharing one server if you don't need it. But suppose you have one person using 4 servers, or suppose you have one person using 40 servers, and suppose that each of those servers had dual 6-core processors and dual state-of-the-art GPU cards and an unspeakable number of gigabytes of RAM. So it didn't really have to rely much on disk loading at all. Okay.
So you're talking about basically networking the power of different servers together to bring one experience.
Yes. Then what you begin to have is something that creates reality.
You can have we've seen your MOBA, so you can have a more dynamic MOBA in an in-game experience.
Yes, but it's not just an avatar talking. I'm talking about a whole world with all the physics, with smoke, with wet eyes, with incredibly sophisticated ray tracing. So like the headlight beams, the headlights in the front of a car, they glisten in the night, and you have the right kind of look for the wet water that's on a road, or there's oil slick, a little bit of oil slicky stuff there. Okay. Total synthetic worlds that don't just look like movies, they look like great movies, okay? But you're in it and you're controlling it, but you're not in it alone. You're in it with people from all over the country, and depending on latency requirements for a particular situation, all over the world. And there are actually games being developed which are so cool that have really tight latency requirements. Like if you're in some sort of close fight or something with somebody right next to you, or if you're driving, yes, the people that you're immediately involved with have to be within, within the United States or within some measure of distance. Right. But then again, there's lots of other people that you might interact with and meet that might actually be on the other side of the world, because the kind of interaction you're having with them is more latency tolerant, right? The thing we're dealing with is the speed of light through the fiber that's interconnecting the world. It's just so amazingly, awesomely cool. And, that kind of experience right now is just not conceivable because there's no market for it.
Right.
Nobody has a computer like that, okay? But we do, and there's no reason in the world why we can't harness those things. So, anyways, it's going to. What you're seeing now is, as I said, OnLive is sort of in its adolescence. It's, if you will, fleshing out the features that already exist with Xbox Live and Steam, and building a library that's finally a decent library, adding other things like parental controls, which are really important. And now that we have enough games that if we were to subdivide the game list, there'd be enough games for kids to play, you know. He was seeing other features. We showed the browse feature at E3, which is going to be totally awesome. Oh, yeah, yeah. I was just showing browse. I was demonstrating some people here where if you do speed tests with our browser, it overloads speed test. It just pins it because it's actually doing a speed test.
It's still measured in megabits per second.
10 gigabit links. It actually.
Well, the speed test is measured in megabits per second.
Yeah, that's right. But it's not measuring, of course, the speed coming into your device. It's measuring the speed coming to our data center, which is just overwhelms whatever's doing the test.
With the browser, are you going to be able to do things like play Minecraft and stuff like that?
Totally. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, or like Ninja Kiwi has like the tower balloon games. Yeah. I mean, the Flash stuff all works. I mean, look, some things are not going to translate well to a controller. Some things are better with a keyboard mouse. Some things are better with touch. So it's same old, same old. I mean, you go to a website, and if you don't have the right interface device for it, it may or may not work, right? And the other thing is, we're not going to, attempt to go and solve everyone's problems in browsing. We have a very media focused kind of thing. We want to go and make it so you get to things like more, games, movies, and stuff like that. So it works extremely well in those situations.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just the thing about it. It's so weird when you're in this virtual world where the browser has a higher speed connection than you do.
Yeah, that's so weird. Yeah. It kind of boggles the mind a little bit.
It's a little weird thing going on there. And sometimes you get, because I do a lot of testing of this stuff, and you get used to it. This website's going back, the way they snap in, And then I go back to the real world where I've got my computer, or I'm on a tablet, or I'm on 3G, somewhere. I'm like, so okay, what's wrong? Oh, right, this is the real world where I don't have a 10 gigabit connection to the internet. Oh my God. So yeah. But anyways.
Well, it seems like also you're turning an internet experience into a similar media like you're doing the video games.
That's right.
Because a lot of the experiences you see, it's like certain internet experiences not available on PC or Mac because it only works on one or the other. You can't do Flash on the iPad, and you have Flash preloaded with the OnLive browser.
Yeah.
So it's that internet experience needs to become just another you don't have to think about it.
That's correct.
Connect to it.
Yes. And we are basically going and turning the internet into pure media. Now, we're already seeing that happening. It's just in little bits and pieces. Netflix, what's happening there? I mean, Netflix is a very simple website, but it's got a fantastic library of movies, right? So off you go. But what do you spend your time doing? You're not really using, quote unquote, the web. You're using the internet, with that. Or if you go to, if you're using an app, like HBO Go or something on a tablet, then again, it's not the web, it's the internet. So the internet is there, it's solid. The interconnects are getting better, the latency is getting better. All these things are growing, in terms of their quality, and of course it's spreading across the globe. And but it's still the case that it's kind of geekified. I mean, think about it. I grew up. I'm a computer scientist, okay, so I grew up and I look at a URL and I think about that URL as something that, resolves to a IP address, and I understand that whole thing. I understand routing, all that kind of stuff, and I'm like looking, when I see like my parents have a browser which shows this/this.this.whatever.com, I'm like, oh my God, they're like looking at code there, or, like this is not so that people are even thinking about the world in such a technical, geeky way. I mean, these days, you can talk to an average person. They'll go and say, yeah, I can't get an IP address from this access point. Like, wait a minute, IP address, you're not, a computer scientist. Why should you even care? What you should be caring about is whatever you're interested in. If it's gaming, if it's, I don't know, you want to watch videos, you want to go and, friend people and so on. So, what's exciting, I mean, we're seeing, it's not just us, it's the tablet guys too, and the smartphone guys. We're kind of taking the technology and moving it behind the scenes. And it's not just to go and, I mean, it's always the case. You can pull out your PC or your Mac. You can always go in there and write your code and do your stuff. Be as geeky as you want. No one's taking that away from you, okay? But for the average person who really doesn't get it, that just wants to use these technologies, it's getting easier and easier. And it's going to be, you know, more and more accessible. So OnLive is sort of the last link in the chain in order to make that work. I mean, people have tried, you know, streaming video, streaming audio, HTML5, Flash, and so on. And those things alone are all good things, but they do not provide you with a completely universal experience that is seamless. The only way you can really do that is if you push all that complexity back into the data center and let IT professionals, you know, manage all that stuff for you. Okay, and that's basically what we're doing here.
So when can users, about when can they expect to see the browse feature?
It's coming later this summer. I mean, you know, we have a couple things we've got to worry about. We have to triage it with everything else we're doing, and new things keep coming onto our plate. Right. You know, the thing is like E3. We showed this and that and the other thing, and now everybody's jumping and they want to do those things too.
Right.
Okay, right. And at the end of the day, when we talk to our you know, OnLive, you know, fans, but they basically, if they had a choice between this fancy dancy new feature or this really cool, amazing new game, yes, they'd probably want the game first. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. All right. We're about 200 people, and we are spread so thin. So we try to prioritize that, and sometimes things get a little delayed. But we always try to push the games as the first priority, and then we move the other things as they're coming in. So will
it be available to everybody, no matter how they're accessing online?
Yeah,
if they're accessing on their iPad or their...
Yeah. As I said, I've gotten used to browsing on a PC through an OnLive browser. Okay, and it's like nothing you've ever experienced before, and it's really hard. What can I say? It's very hard to get off the habit of super fast connections with really, really low ping times. And I'm like, oh man, here I am back to a normal, you know, DSL or cable modem connection. I'm like, oh, bummer, man. So, but anyway, so yeah, we will have it for all those devices. Like everything else we've done, you got to let us go and crawl and walk and then stand up and run. You know what I mean? We can't go and just unleash it with everything, all the bells and whistles just yet. It's like voice chat. I was saying we're about to add the group voice chat feature. It's very, very complex managing voice chat of diverse groups of people who are connecting on all different kinds of devices, going in and out of different kinds of games.
So you're gonna be able to chat on the iPad?
Totally, yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. Why not? Wow. It's got a microphone, right?
Chat with the iPad. So, like, just for like a lot of the techie guys have been kind of wondering. So, is the issue with getting voice chat not really the issue with it? Probably not the better way to say that. But is the challenge with voice chat so much so that it adds more? It adds more power to that's demanded on the actual internet speeds?
Oh no. Well, a little bit. I mean, if you decide to have, if you're doing listen mode, well, it's part of the audio channel, so it doesn't add anything to the internet speed. But suppose you want to go and separate out the audio because it's a separate audio channel, but it's very low bandwidth. I mean, basically, if you have any kind of reasonable connection, voice chat doesn't impact it at all. I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to notice it. And, you know, no, the complexity with voice chat is that you're interconnecting people from around the globe. Remember, you're not just talking about, you know, you're not talking about peer-to-peer connections between people's homes. We're not talking about connections in a data center. You're talking about this global network. I mean, it's sort of like a big conference system, but it's completely real time.
And global.
And yeah, and you're moving. When you move from, you know, a low-end game where there's multiple instances in one server to a high-end game where it's on a different, maybe on a server alone, or a very high-end game someday where it's going across several servers, or when you're actually transported sometimes to a different location for one reason or another. I mean, we've got to have the voice go with you, right? And there's never been anyone who's had to go and address that situation before.
So you're pretty much inventing this. It's like nobody else.
Yes. And so, you know, a lot of people don't quite understand that in a typical OnLive session, you may be using 20, 30 servers that you're jumping between as you're going from one thing to another, and it happens on a frame boundary of video, so it's seamless. You don't notice it, all right? But we notice it, and we have to, and everything's got to go with you. All your state information, all your user data, everything, so that it's all seamless. It's a very, very complex thing. But we made a big investment over the last year, if you will, and over the years before, to build an extremely solid foundation. And the reason we built a really solid foundation, it took a little longer, is we intend to build a very, very tall skyscraper on top of it, okay? And I'm telling you, man, we haven't even built out the first floor yet. I consider the first floor just kind of being a parity with features with existing console or PC, game systems, okay? We're getting there. We're just about there, And then the second story is when you start seeing things. We already have a few things which are beyond things like brag clips and stuff like that are unique to OnLive. But you're going to start seeing on the second story and the third story stuff that is completely mind-blowing. But mind-blowing does not mean you need to be a total ultra geek in order to experience it. We want to bring the mind-blowing stuff to everybody who goes for it because they're a gamer. Or whatever it is, like if it's, I don't know, enterprise, because they're doing something in business, say. That's why they use it. It's not because they necessarily are enamored with the technology, Yeah, cool.
Good stuff.
All right.
Hey, Perlman.
Cool. So we got lots of footage there.
Oh, yeah.